How do we use technology to close the gap between rich and poor?
Now today I can say I have my grade 12, I'm a qualified trainer, and it's all thanks to Bank Windhoek.
I just want to say thanks to have this tank. Now when we are fetching the water, now these tanks they are near, that's why we are using these tanks now.
En ons sê baie dankie van Bank Windhoek wat hierdie leer het vir ons gegee, laat ons kan ons lewe van ons eie hande.
Our budget of 300,000 rand a month are covered by local businesses and individuals. So we're very blessed. We have Bank Windhoek.
Bank Windhoek recently upgraded its ATMs by adding 3 additional local languages.
The initiative actually originates from the fact that we recognize that as a truly Namibian bank, we need to understand the Namibian customer a lot better.
This is a bank that was founded by a local person, by a local entrepreneur. I mean, the founding father is a local person that is born in Grootfontein. He's known, he worked here, his parents are here, we are here.
Well, somewhere it's not clear what I must tell you about myself. I belong to the O positive blood group.
I'm very peaceful in my spare time. Generally, I would jog, read, hang out with my husband and children. So I'm really quite toned down in my spare time because everything else is so busy.
I'm a chartered accountant by profession. I'm married, 2 children, both about to leave home. My son just completed his studies and my daughter's about to go to university.
I'm a mother, firstly. So I have 2 grown young boys. I'm very family orientated, obviously. I love spending time with family and friends.
I was born and bred in Namibia, schooled here, studied here, the Polytechnic of Namibia at that stage, and all my career I've worked in Namibia.
Back in those days we didn't have toys. You know, toys was a luxury, you know, Lego and whatnot. So I became very creative. So I used to take bricks and then carve them into cars, and like I'll just be in the yard and, you know, with highways and all of this stuff and just entertain myself.
Every night when I about to lay my head down for the night, I ask myself, have I today done what I've set out to do, and have I added value? I always, Samuel, had an entrepreneurial inclination. Although I loved commercial law, which I focused on in my legal career, I always had a strong interest in that. What struck me was the fact that nobody was focusing on the importance of the creation of a locally controlled and established and managed financial institution. Today, I can't quote you figures, we are a major employer of Namibians here, and moreover, Bank Windhoek has become the cornerstone for further development, and which actually led to the establishment of the Capricorn Group, which today operates in Botswana and with a number of subsidiaries and associate companies within Namibia.
It remains an immense privilege to work for this group. I cannot think of any other group that I would like to work for. I think, you know, that we've created such positive change in Namibia, for Namibia and beyond, in Botswana, where we also now. I still see a lot of opportunities for this group, and you know, it is because of that togetherness that we have always shared with our community and with our customers.
I don't think any entity can exist without their community. So we are here because of the people. So it's not just about, profits. There's planet and there's people as well.
Our foundation as a bank has always been entrepreneurship. We were established by a group of entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship was one of our key focus areas at the beginning with education, and it still is today. And something that not a lot of people realize is that Bank Windhoek was instrumental in the period 2005 to 2008 in the development of a curriculum on entrepreneurship as a subject in schools. I was on the steering committee of the Ministry of Education at the time, and over a period of 3 years we developed the curriculum, and in 2008, for the first time in Namibia, entrepreneurship was a subject in schools.
I have a somewhat awkward outlook on milestones. Every night when I am about to lay my head down for the night, I ask myself, have I today done what I've set out to do, and have I added value, not only to my own interests, but to the people and the stakeholders around me. I built a school up at Grootfontein and a hospital there for the community. That's of the greatest importance to me, and I think it's the greatest gift of life to be able to do that. I don't measure it in specific milestones.
I can't speak for anyone else. I can only speak for how I see the bank. And in terms of being a local bank, I think that they are doing a wonderful job in terms of promoting local companies and understanding the market, understanding what the local flavor brings to the table.
This is the main thing. Once you become a worker and you're in a place where you become employed, you want a car. And the bank immediately approved of that account. I was surprised. So they approved, and I can tell you up to this point now, I've been approved. They've approved about 20 car loans. I've had about 20 cars through the bank. You can check with vehicle and asset finance. All of them were approved, and the conditions that they actually gave in terms of the car loans actually gets better. Cameron Klaasen is actually very instrumental in this, because he's now my personal friend because of getting those car loans, because I had to see him every day. And even the managers at Vehicle Asset Finance, they know me so well. If I come in, they greet me like I'm their friend and not just a customer. And I think this is what makes this journey so interesting, is that I'm feeling now part of the family. In fact, I'm not no more just a client or customer coming in. If I go into the bank, they will greet me as either Mr. Isaacs or Christo. So I feel I'm part of their family.
If I can attest to one thing tonight, it is the people of Bank Windhoek that brought us to where we are today. I want to thank each and every member of staff of Bank Windhoek and Capricorn Group, past and present, for the years of service and dedication.
What makes us authentic is the role that we've played in people's lives. A lot of people think, let me not say a lot of people, but it's natural to say a brand identity is a logo and colors. But it's not like that. Take, for example, me as a brand. I'm talking to you. Yes, it's Nyasha. My name is Nyasha, so that's my name of the company or the brand. Okay, the colors is how I dress. It's my wardrobe. But until you know how I speak, what my story is, it goes beyond just the logo. You know, me as a person, that's me as a logo to say, okay, this identifies who Nyasha is. But when it comes to me resonating with you, that confidence also comes, then that's where my area of expertise comes, or us as marketers, to say that perception, that confidence, the personality of who Bank Windhoek is. If you know who you're dealing with, we are a bank of relationships, so we can't be a bank of relationships and not have an identity. How do we speak? What's our tone of voice? You know, do we speak on your level? How do we behave ourselves in public? You know, what is our story? So I think a brand identity is very important.
You know, one of the briefs that I had when I was appointed was to reposition the bank from a market perspective and to rebrand or to lead the rebranding of the bank. Yeah, it was just an amazing journey, and in 2003 the new Bank Windhoek brand was born.
The first thing that scared me was I said, well, now if this fails, it's on your head. And because the research was quite critical, a lot of people were very negative about this. They said, yeah, people just don't like the bank, you know, that's why they're criticizing us, etc. And the first thing I needed to do was to make sure that the team, marketing team, accepts the results from the research. We said, Johan, we are not depressed. This is okay. It's negative, very negative in some cases, but we'll accept this and we'll take it on and we'll chunk it into projects that we can run. And one of them, of course, was the brand identity. But there were many others. There was internal communication. There was, you know, our brochures and language, and there was issues around HR. We needed to do a lot of internal comms to try and make sure that staff members are, you know, living up to the values of the brand. It was a very special moment, but everybody pulled together. It was such a moment of pride. And I think the new Bank Windhoek, or the Bank Windhoek, was reborn.
I think a big success story. And what it did to the culture of the bank was just amazing to see how it changed people.
Prior to that, there were people who said, I'm from Volkskas, Trust Bank, Boland Bank, you know, and then there was a bit of Bank Windhoek in there. So this was the beginning of actually merging those into one brand. Yeah.
The Together We Do Better was quite a powerful brand positioning for the Bank Windhoek brand, and up to now people still reside it. It really had actually built the brand equity of the brand in the Namibian market. I remember when I joined, that was one of the things I remembered. So when we started, we needed a refresh, and we couldn't really go too extrinsic from that brand proposition. Why I'm saying that is that it needed to be still very close to Bank Windhoek and not too far-fetched. You know, banking services is banking services. Whether this bank or that bank, you know, people just want a trusted relationship. And I think the icing on the cake was the research that was available to our disposal was reaffirming the fact that Bank Windhoek was a relationship bank. And I think that just gave it such a lot of legs when we started to conceptualize journeying together. And I think Nyasha brought this very interesting concept of cradle to grave. The bank is actually part of your childhood from when you are born, because your parents will open up a sort of an account even when your mom is pregnant, and so you grow until you have your own family. You start to work, you start to acquire assets, etc. So that for us was quite a powerful space. And linking the relationship angle, we definitely thought Bank Windhoek then is part of your journey through life. Our products and services, what we offer you, actually caters for from a young age up to a senior. And that gave birth then to journeying together through precious milestones, etc. And ultimately, we believe that the TV ad actually brought that story out so beautifully.
Let's take a walk together through precious milestones lined with fear and uncertainty. You learned, you bonded, celebrating life's little victories whenever they came along. You practiced over and over and over again, pursuing perfection, persevering through hardships, never losing sight of your vision, your dream of a better world, building relationships for happily ever after, shaping a brighter future for all together. No matter your journey, we are here with you every single step of the way, because yours is a relationship worth banking on. Bank Windhoek, a member of Capricorn Group.
You are investing in us. We are working this journey with you. And for us, we realize that you don't think about us every day, but when we do connect, we need to be on the same level. That's where journeying together comes from. If you hear the Bank Windhoek story, most people will tell you, yeah, no, I got my first account when I was old and my parents and stuff. So that's part of our heritage. Yes, the milestones are there, but what makes us authentic is the role that we've played in people's lives. Though the stories are probably not as common, but I'm sure each and every one has got. Maybe it's Cancer Apple that when you're in high school, you're like, oh yeah, there was Cancer Apple, I remember. That's a point where we touch somebody, as a brand. So identity, that's what identifies us. The colors and the logos follow suit, but then that's where the brand equity is. And brand equity is not built overnight. It's through years, and now we are celebrating 40 years. So through those 40 years, we've just been building. And for the next 40 years, we'll still be able to. And that's our challenge, to say now we've reached 40 years. What are we going to do for the next 40 years? And if so, how do we remain in the hearts of the people?
Now, I was a youngster in my 30s in those years, but still very full of initiative and pioneering spirit of an entrepreneur. And then in 1982, an opportunity arose. The late Mr. Gert Hanekom, auditor at the time, had his own firm, auditing firm, and the late Professor Piet Malherbe from PJ Malherbe and Company alerted me and suggested that I talk to Volkskas. They had a very small banking operation in Namibia, smaller than all the rest of the competition, Barclays and Standard Bank, etc., etc. And I successfully succeeded in staging a transaction with them. That was about 9 years before official independence. But I was still very happy with what I've achieved. You will all understand how critical importance trust is in a banking institution. Yeah. Now, I was a youngster in my 30s in those years, but still very full of initiative and pioneering spirit of an entrepreneur. I neatly used old, well-established business faces to stand in front of the curtain while I was doing all the work at the back of the curtain. But it worked well, and it was a major challenge in succeeding in just doing that, making the transaction work.
I joined the firm of Coopers & Lybrand in 1989 in Windhoek as the managing partner. The firm merged with the late Minister Gert Hanekom's firm G.J. Hanekom & Co. In the early 90s, and I continued with the firm subsequently. As you know, Coopers & Lybrand eventually became PricewaterhouseCoopers. But right from the word go, I got involved with Bank Windhoek. I was the partner on the audit from 1989 onwards. So over the years I got to know the bank quite intimately. I was approached by our chairperson, Mr. Brandt, in the sort of late 90s. Initially I declined. I said I was very happy with what I was doing. I thought that I would stay in the accounting profession for the rest of my life at that point in time. But we all know Mr. Brandt, he doesn't take no for an answer. And then I can remember it very clearly in just before Christmas in 1998. Him and Mr. Koert van Vieren, who was the managing director at the time, came to see me, and they said to me, look, we really believe that you're the right person for the job of managing director of the Bank Windhoek, and at least just go and think about it. So that's what I did over Christmas. I thought about it, I prayed about it, and probably took one of the best decisions of my life to join the bank.
An opportunity came up. We had a jet. Rosing owned its private jet, and we had an administrator, and he was off sick. And then I was asked to go and help administer the office. So I got into Rosing, and the rest is history. Then I became the public relations officer for the mine. Then I became the head of industrial relations and corporate communications. Then I moved to Windhoek, and I became head of corporate affairs and external relations, and worked for Rosing for 13 years.
13 before joining Bank?
Before joining Bank Windhoek. And then we started, well, you know, the economy wasn't doing very well at that time. It's funny how the economy doesn't do well from time to time. And the mine had to cut back, and they had to close the Windhoek office. So all the staff had to be moved to the mine. In fact, at that time, Alida Kotson was also working in my department. And it's a very small world, yeah. So what we did is we moved everybody to the mine, and we also tried to streamline a lot of functions. And during that period, I was approached by Mr. Swanepoel to consider whether I would join Bank Windhoek in the role of marketing manager. Now, I wasn't coming from a marketing background, and he said, no, we actually want to try and restructure the department. At that time, Malise was in the department, and she was heading public relations and communications. And what we wanted to do was a little bit bigger, is try and put some more capacity in the function. Becoming the first female director on the Bank Windhoek board in 2004. I've been on the bank's board for almost 14 years. So in most circles, it's time to move on and hand over the mantle to somebody else. Yeah. And we are looking, you know, to find new directors that can come on board and take over. That was interesting. And if I look at what I do now on the board and what I could do at the board in 2004, they are miles apart, because the responsibility of directors has changed a lot. And at that time, I really knew very little about what it is to be a director. But now I think I'm an expert.
I really feel that the passion that's making Bank Windhoek great sits in its relationship mentality, in the model. It's a people's bank. People like to engage. I think the Namibian culture is a relationship culture. And people are able to connect with the Bank Windhoek ethos and the people working there in terms of the customers. They can hear their problems are being attended to. From all my discussions over the years with Mr. Brandt, for example, it's also always about listening to the problem and finding solutions rather than just saying no. It's about understanding who people are and where they come from. Again, back to the relationship, and very similar to the conversation we're having today, is who are you and where did you come from, and why are you going to be successful, and helping you be successful. I think that's perhaps one of the biggest contributions that people often underestimate from a bank, is they're not just sitting there making money. but they're actually putting in the oil into the engine of the economy. Responsible lending and being able to cater for the savings of the pensioner, of the retail client and the corporate, to make sure that we're giving them a good return whilst making sure that great ideas are infused to create new businesses, to help the economy grow.
Mr. Brandt's card had not worked.
I think many of the things that we achieved, people often thought was impossible. I can remember with Project Technovision, at the time we had no systems. Everything was done by Boland Financial or Boland Bank in South Africa. I mean, to the point where all that we did on this side is we printed the reports, but everything else was done on that side. We had no treasury system, the general ledger, the financial records were run out of Nepal in South Africa. We had to become self-sufficient from a systems perspective. When we embarked on the project, our advisors at the time was PwC, and we said to them that's what we would like to achieve. And I remember it was exactly 22 months from that day to the day that we proposed to go live. And they said can't be done. And we went back and decided, had a discussion on the executive management team, and I asked them, are you guys prepared for the challenge? We're trying to do the impossible, mission impossible. And they said, we're on. And Rochelle, we did it. We went live on the 1st of April 2001 with multiple systems. Yes, there was a lot of pain and we expected that, but that's just part of changing systems. You can't ever test for every eventuality. But that positioned us as the innovator bank in Namibia, and we seized the opportunity. We were the first online banking platform, at the first online banking platform in the country, first cell phone banking. So we really had control of that space.
We had to plan the launch, and that was a big thing. And the launch happened on when we go live. So there was the usual buzz, that marketing does, and T-shirts and a cake and etc. And I recall being downstairs in the main branch when Mr. Brandt walked in to test his card, and the card didn't work. And the gentleman called Mr. Van Rensburg was sweating. He was literally cutting a sweat early in the morning. Mr. Brandt's card had not worked.
We launched for the first time internet banking. That was a massive success. Our own acquiring solutions in branch with a bit of a CRM, clearing and settlement. So it was really a step in the direction we needed, and to become truly independent, and I think to enable us and almost set us up to realize the growth that we experienced during that subsequent time.
We were the first card issuers in Namibia, so the Visa Electron card, which is the blue card that we know so well, we were the first to sort of issue that, and I had the privilege, after we've gone live, to be the guy in the card production office sometimes at night, running those card machines and putting the cards through them and printing pins on the side. It was about rolling up your sleeves and becoming part of the solution, okay? And we all worked together. And somebody like Johan Swanepoel, he worked late with me in that building many nights. I remember him sometimes popping into my office at 9:30 in the evening and just say, I'm off now, and we would quickly touch base on the day that's been, and tomorrow is a new day, Just that same Johan Swanepoel, one of the magic moments that I will never forget is that we, as a team, we were called to Nampower Convention Center, that Nampower Hall, the day after we've gone live on the new system, and it went well. If you look at the magnitude of everything that went live simultaneously, I think it puts the few challenges that we might have had afterwards into perspective, because it was big. And Johan standing on stage, and being the modest guy and the quiet person that he is, you know, singing "We Are the Champions" to the whole audience there. That's a moment that I will never forget. It was so much also about him as a leader and the example that he also set throughout the exercise.
You know, I was just standing there, sort of at the end of my talk, and people were a little bit jittery, and I could feel that the mood was not what I wanted it to be. This was about a hype. It was about getting people excited for what was, and yeah, I just spontaneously started to sing "We Are the Champions." Wow. And I think everybody was so astounded. Even the cameraman couldn't believe what was happening, so he forgot to switch on the camera.
So if Technovision was transformation 1.0, then the transformation journey we're currently on, which we've termed or coined the Go Beyond journey, is definitely transformation 2.0. And it's really around ramping up it's a strong focus on our channels, on our physical and digital channels, to streamline, to revamp the way we do business, that we've been doing business for the last 40 years. As part of this journey, it's not just though technology, it's really around customer transformation and business transformation as well.
I honestly believe, and we've seen it from customer feedback, we've seen it from research, that your branch network of today and your digital almost capabilities or offerings need to coexist. The one cannot do without the other. If I look at the physical channel, which is mainly the branch channel today, I think it's extremely important to maintain that for a number of reasons. The branch will play an essential role in this journey and going forward, because there are some interactions which you cannot have via digital channels with clients. Value-added services, advice, really having that face-to-face discussion is critical in many instances.
The world has changed a lot since '82, I agree with you. And it will still change a lot in the next 20 years. But you should still focus on qualifying yourself to the best of your abilities. Make yourself marketable and available so that you can engage with the many opportunities that will unlock itself in the next 20 years. Opportunities even today abound, but you've got to look fresh at the world around you. There are new and fresh opportunities arising daily, but you just have to tune your mind in the right way and manner and observe what's going on in the world around you.
We live in a world of intersecting challenges, of rising inequalities, uncertain economic recovery, geopolitical tensions, and armed conflict. It is critical now, more than ever, that we embrace innovation and create a place where entrepreneurship can flourish.
We can't ignore that this is here now.
Liquidity, funding was a major challenge right through all those years. But we succeeded in doing it. And I was very proud that despite the hard work and all the risks and challenges, we succeeded in just doing that and achieving our goals, to the benefit of Namibia at large, the government, all stakeholders, and the public of Namibia.
I think very few people remember or know is is our role that we played in the Marua Mall. In the early 2000s, there was this struggling mall. The developer was close to bankruptcy, and we had to make a decision what to do. And we said, well, let's take the mall, turn it into a mall that had the right critical mass, that offered something fresh and new to the market, and turn it around and take something that's not working and that was likely to be a significant credit loss, make it a valuable asset. And I mean, the rest is history. We rebuilt the Marua Mall, and then soon after that we were the joint founders of Oryx Properties, and we then divested from Marua.
The first year I joined the bank, there was a sort of an economic, slowdown, a housing bubble that burst. So it's not been uneventful, I can say that for sure. So we had the issue with the housing market in the first year and the economic slowdown. Second year we had a liquidity crisis. In my third year we had a drought, I think third and fourth year. Then I was hit by COVID. Yeah. Then we were hit by COVID, not only me. So I cannot say that it was an easy time. I think coming into an organization that sort of just grew and did very well up until 2015, and then being hit by economic slowdown really took a lot of courage and a strength from above just to remain focused. But it was very exciting. Despite it all, I think I learned so much in that journey. I think the team learned and grew. It was probably what we needed just to get the grit that we have today, is to go through those times, to learn, to try, to fail, to realize that to succeed we have to do different things. It also gave us the platform to do different things, because up until then, if you continue growing at 20% on the back of what you've always done, it's very difficult to motivate change. But in a way, these challenges were a blessing in disguise, because they created a platform where everyone had to ask, okay, what do we do differently? And I think that just set the tone, which then allowed us to introduce innovation. It allowed us to, to conceptualize, go beyond. It allowed us to look at the business and just to make sure that we bring something else to this market.
Every year is different. So when we had the previous interview or discussion, it was pre-COVID. Okay, so now I can say, I think Diederik asked me the one time, in 2008 with the financial crisis. So is this the worst you've ever experienced? And I said, no, because I was at a different time in my life. So in 1998, and I will tell people this, it was hard, it was difficult. There was also a global crisis, I think brought on by Russia and emerging markets and so on. And it was, I sat at my desk and I cried because it was so stressful. But yeah, and then 2008 when I got here was another financial crisis, but it was different, and I was older and I had a different team and I had different support in a different institution. So I experienced it better, if you can say that. And then even now through COVID, it was different. Everybody was experiencing, and it wasn't just about money, it was about people's health and well-being. So it had more of a different spin to it, as opposed to just, interest rates are going up or, currencies are weakening. It was about people and how we were losing people around us, and nobody was prepared for it.
The thing that I learned about COVID was that it softened us. It made us all very empathetic. It made us all stop and just pause and to say, we can't ignore that this is here now. And different people have various situations that we cannot just have one size fits all. So one of the best things about COVID that it taught us from a human capital space is that each of our employees, they're going to have a unique story, and they're going to need personalization as to how do I support somebody who lives with his mother and father, or who's a single parent, or who has children, or those that don't have children, or those that get extremely unwell versus those that don't experience it that way. And we needed to come up with a scenario for each one and come up with a way that we could defend whatever decisions we were making with each different scenario, which makes it very tricky, because you need to still make people feel like you're being treated fairly, and that what's done for you will also be done for me if I'm in that situation. So it really put us in a situation where we had to be honest, had to question every decision that we made, and not just rush into solving something, but to make decisions quite quickly, because there was somebody on the end of that needed an answer. I think lots of companies their cages were rattled, because how am I going to survive? How am I going to do this? So, and I'm very proud of how Bank Windhoek, in a short amount of time, just arrange everything. People to be able to set up and work from home, who could work from home. The arrangements to densify the branches, you know, to send people that home that can't work at that stage, you know, just to have them lesser in the branches. We also been privileged to have extra special COVID leave for those people who could not work from home but were supposed to be at home because of the de-densifying of the branches. So we also supplied all our employees with immune boosters during that time, and we really tried to be there for them from a business perspective, you know, to put that human factor into the difficult time that they went through. And also the scary and uncertain time. It was scary and uncertain even for the business, because I mean, will you make target? Will you be able to keep all your employees? All those things happened during that time. But our first focus was on how do we keep our employees safe. I remember many times when oxygen tanks were not available, and everybody putting our hands down and saying, let's find a solution. We've got an employee who has a husband or has a child or has a partner who is in this situation, and just because that person didn't work for us didn't mean that we were like, well, who cares? We said, this person is connected to our employee and we need to make it work, because how can we expect this person to show up if their loved ones aren't at their best? We unfortunately did lose 8 of our employees during that time, which is still a sad experience for everybody.
If we need to build hospitals, that's a government thing. If we need to build schools, that's a government thing. We've seen it's not just a government thing.
I think the spirit of collaboration that exists in our country, mutual respect, high levels of tolerance. Yes, we have our problems. I'm positive we'll get past that as well. I think we're a great nation, and we must just keep on focusing and working on these things. We know the problems that they bring on other nations, and we don't want to go there. That stems me very positive about the future.
Bank Windhoek and Capricorn want to do what is right for Namibia, and what is the best things that we can do. And we can't just work in our own silo. And I think in Namibia, if we want to make the country great and we want to achieve all the things that are out there, there's lots of possibilities. I think in these last 2-3 years, the possibilities have become endless. We have to work with government, and it's not telling them what to do, it's more advising. And I think even with Tinus Prinsloo being on that what was the business rescue, yeah, those are the type of initiatives that we must be doing, because business must help inform government as to what's actually happening on the ground, you know, and not just listening to customers and the man in the street saying, I'm feeling the pain and the banks are not helping me. You know, so how can the banks pull together and assist the economy? And I think a lot of the forums that have been set up now I think there's a green hydrogen task force, and there's that SDG Namibia 1 blended financing platform and so on. I think it's important that whether it's banks, that everybody in the private sector see what they can do and how they can contribute, and not just say, oh, if we need to improve infrastructure, that's a government thing. If we need to build hospitals, that's a government thing. If we need to build schools, that's a government thing. We've seen it's not just a government thing.
Bank Windhoek has had an extraordinary year in my view, in terms of our performance. And believe me, the day after the bonus letters went out, I realized we actually made a difference in people's lives. So that is a very simple example. And I must honestly say I'm very thankful that we in good times can also turn to our people and say, guys, thank you and well done. I think it also encourages us and to do better in future. But Sammy, I think there are so many things we do every day that impact people. And you spoke to the question of what do you consider when you make decisions at the end of the day, and our people is a huge part of it. What are we great at? Our people are our biggest asset. They are responsible for the great customer service we are known for, managing the relationships we are known for. So if you stick to your fundamentals again of what has made you great the last 40 years and where you want to move, you make decisions daily that impact people, and you should always have your people hat on to make sure people are better off. You're not only enhancing the customer experience, but also the employee experience.
The unity that we have going on as Bank Windhoek workers is really amazing. And what I saw, what proved my point then, was the relationship that our executives have. It made me realize, actually, so this feeling that I have, this unity culture that I feel within my department is just not in my department. It's the culture that we are trying to build as a whole, as a Bank Windhoek workers, as a group. So it's really amazing to see that coming from top up to the bottom.
The principles of it in terms of being connected, realizing that we need each other to win, is something that really resonates with me. Being open to hearing other thinking, to be influenceable, to enrich, to have a better outcome, is also something that I really feel strongly about. And then, yeah, we'll have differences, but it's about how we resolve those differences that's important. And I think it creates a platform where we can have resilient and robust discussions, but be constructive about it.
My hope is to maintain its status in the market and to grow it and develop it further with a spin-off to the whole group of Capricorn ultimately, and to the country with all its stakeholders. I think that's our duty and that's the role we have to play.
When you look back over the 40 years of Bank Windhoek and you look at the story that unfolds, it is a wonderful story, and it's a story of being blessed, and it's a story of a lot of sacrifice. And you know, we always talk about the people of Bank Windhoek, but behind the people of Bank Windhoek, behind the people that work the extra hours, that go the extra mile, you know, there's a family at home, there's a spouse and there's children that also sacrifice. You know, personally, if I look at the support that I got from Ida and from my children, that's what everybody had. I mean, the success wouldn't have been able without that. And then I would like to give thanks to the Lord that blessed us, because we were truly blessed, and all thanks and praise to the Lord for that.
Bank Windhoek.
Bank Windhoek. Bank Windhoek. Bank Windhoek.
Bank Windhoek.
Bank Windhoek.
Bank Windhoek.
Bank Windhoek, a member of Capricorn Group.